I remember the day I found her, on the edge of the paddy fields, where the mist clung like wet cloth to every stalk of rice, and the water reflected a sky that never warmed. I was 12, and we'd moved to my grandmother's ancestral village for summer. Everyone said I'd vanish into boredom, but that night, boredom led me to her. I was chasing a stray goat when I saw the figure. Small, pale, hunched in the fog beside the water. An old girl, I thought, someone from a story. She had no reflection on the surface, and her eyes, just holes of black deep enough to drown in. I stopped, breath caught in my throat. She didn't speak, didn't move. I asked, "Are you lost?" No answer. I reached out. Before I touched her sleeve, she vanished. No footprints, nothing but the shaking of the mist. That started everything. The next nights, she came back at the same hour, 4:05, standing over my unmade bed in the dark house. I watched sleep slide away from me as she tilted her head and traced shapes on the glass window with long, thin fingers that left wet smears. I woke screaming. My grandmother ran in, saw only my tears and that smear. She whispered, "Don't look into her eyes." I didn't understand. The following day, someone said the village had legends about the Gloom girl, a child who drowned decades ago, cursed to drag others into the water at dusk. They said if you looked into her eyes, you'd feel the cold of the deep, and you'd want to follow her home. By midday, I felt it. The pull of the paddy's tepid water calling me, promising quiet. I shook it off, but that night she was closer. A face pressed against the latticed window, black voids for eyes, mouth curved upward in a sad, hungry smile. She touched the glass, and behind my eyes, I saw the water swell, felt the slow drift away. I stepped back. She smiled wider. Then she was gone. My grandmother burned incense. She told me old stories about appeasing spirits, chants, circles of salt. I scoffed until I realized the grains of salt were glowing pale blue under her lamp, and the smoke curled toward the corner where she stood. I can't stop thinking of her, of those eyes without reflection, of the way water calls. I'm writing this at 4:05 a.m., and I feel her behind me, hovering. I dare not turn. The night after I first saw her behind me, everything inside the house started to feel damp, like the air carried the weight of river water. The walls sweated. My pillow stayed cold no matter how many times I turned it. My phone camera fogged up from the inside. I stopped sleeping. I tried salt, prayers, even locked the door and taped the windows. But nothing stopped the feeling that something was dripping closer each minute. At breakfast, my grandmother didn't look at me. She said I was pale, thinner. I hadn't eaten in a day. She muttered something about pulling roots and lit more incense. I asked her what she meant. She said, "Spirits don't come for you. They come for what's connected to you." I didn't understand until I saw my little sister Zara that evening, standing barefoot in the field, staring at the water. Her eyes were glazed. She didn't blink. I ran to her, grabbed her arm. It was freezing. She whispered, "She sings to me." I dragged her back, heart pounding, while she cried, "She just wants to show me where she sleeps." My grandmother poured ash into a bowl and made her drink it with milk. She kept whispering prayers in an old dialect I'd never heard. My sister vomited mud, real mud, sticky, thick, clumps of it, then passed out. I stayed awake that night, watching the corners. At 4:05 a.m., she came again, but not for me, for Zara. I saw her crawl from under the bed, not walk, not glide, crawl like a spider, her limbs bending in all the wrong directions. Couldn't scream, couldn't move. She reached the edge of my sister's bed and hovered there, face inches from Zara's. Then her head snapped toward me. For the first time, she spoke. "You took her back. Now I take you." I blinked. She vanished. But the wall where she had stood was wet, not just damp, dripping. And on the wetness were marks, long scratch-like marks, and something written backwards, like a message only visible through a mirror. I used my phone camera to flip it. It said, Under. I thought she meant the bed. I was wrong. That morning, my grandmother took me to an old woman who lived past the fields. She wore 9 rings and spoke in riddles. When I told her what I'd seen, she nodded slowly and said, "You stepped where you shouldn't. You looked into what you weren't meant to. She drowned alone and now drags those who remember her into forgetting." I asked, "Forgetting what?" She just whispered that they were ever alive. That night, I dreamt I was underwater, sinking, surrounded by reeds, and far below me was a little girl smiling. I woke up in the field, soaked to the bone, with muddy footprints leading back to the house. My grandmother was gone. Zara was gone. Only the house remained, humming softly like it was breathing through the floors. I opened the back door. The water in the fields was rising fast, and in its reflection, I didn't see myself. I saw her. I didn't run. I couldn't. When I saw her reflection instead of mine, it was like something clicked inside me, like I had already drowned and the boy named Arham was just a memory still moving around out of habit. The house groaned behind me as if it knew the truth too, as if it was never my house to live in, only to be lured to. The water in the fields had risen past the boundary stones up to my ankles, now creeping higher. I turned slowly. The house no longer looked like ours. The walls sagged, mold black and pulsing. The windows stared like hollow eyes. And inside I saw them, Zara, barefoot, drenched, standing perfectly still in the hallway. And behind her, my grandmother, swaying like she was caught in a wind I couldn't feel, her mouth whispering words that didn't sound like words anymore. They looked at me like they didn't recognize me. And then she stepped between them, the girl in the gloom, her hair stringy, her eyes those same black holes, and her mouth stretched wider than before. She raised one finger and pointed at me. The floor beneath Zara cracked. She didn't move. I rushed forward through the rising water, screaming their names, but the house kept stretching, hallways longer, walls bending, shadows swallowing door frames. My voice disappeared in the wet silence. I made it to Zara just as her feet slipped through the floor, her body sinking into dark water that wasn't there a second ago. I grabbed her arm. It was cold, almost rubbery, but something pulled her down from below. She looked up at me, mouth moving, but no sound came out. Her eyes weren't glazed anymore. They were terrified. I screamed louder, pulled harder, but the water won. She vanished. I collapsed, and in that moment I saw the truth, the house, the field, the girl. It wasn't just one ghost. It was a place that remembered everyone who had ever touched its soil. A place that fed on memory. The girl was only the first. And I was becoming the next. I crawled to the mirror in the old hallway, shattered from age. My face was still there, but it flickered. For half a second, I saw her eyes in place of mine. For another half second, I saw nothing. Just water. Water stretching forever. That night, I left the house. I don't know how. The fields were silent. The house didn't stop me. Maybe it didn't have to. Maybe I was already part of it. Now, I live far away. New city, new school, new name. My parents think it was trauma, think I imagined everything. They said Grandma passed peacefully in her sleep and Zara drowned in a storm. But I remember too clearly. And now every night at 4:05 a.m. I wake up soaking wet. My bedsheets drip with rice water. My mirror fogs from the inside. And every time I look into it, she's closer. Sometimes I see Zara behind her. Not waving. Just watching. I've stopped sleeping. But I know one day I'll blink too long. One day the mirror won't reflect this room anymore. It will show the field, the rising water, the girl smiling. And this time, I won't wake up.